So lastly, I just want to give you a little bit thought around how you use your add-in, how you can deploy it, how you can create one, how you can get some more information about it. The first place you might want to go is at the docs.microsoft.com, which is the Office Dev Add-ins documentation page, as you can see here. And you can click on these different links to discover new areas of your development possibilities. You have this Office add-in platform that gives you an overview over how it works. I'll let you read all this stuff on your own. I'm not going to highlight it too much about it. Obviously, it's going to consist of some kind of web app that you host somewhere. The key file is going to be this manifest XML file. There is some additional descriptors down here you can look at. This will tell you how you can actually create a Office add-in with Visual Studio, which is what I did. There's also another version of it here you can take advantage of. Create your own add-in, and in this tutorial here, they tell you how to create an add-in using Node, as you can see here, and VSCode. So you can create there, and it takes you step by step how you can generate this. I tried this myself, but I had some conflicts with the certificates that I was trying to generate. So it was trying to manipulate all the certificate in my Windows machine. It was a little tricky. So I scrapped it and I used Visual Studio 2022, the community edition, which is a free download you can go and get. So that's another tutorial you might take a look at. There's also a possibility to create add-in commands, and you do that in the manifest file. You can basically create ribbon controls, and this particular overview here shows you how you can do that. There's also this app domains section here. Is if you want to link some of your buttons or some of your ribbon controls inside your add-in here, then you should set your URL that you approve in here. You should list them here for those that you do approve. And there's some additional information here, and it tells you what's inside this manifest file, and it kind of highlights what you can kind of change and so forth. There's also a very important topic of deployment, and here they show you how you can do different versions of deployment. So you can do this side-loading deployment. There's also something called network share deployment, which is what I use, just for testing and demo purposes, obviously. But if you want to really professionally done, you use this app source deployment. And if you do the app source deployment, you have access to this Microsoft App Source location that you sign up for, and then you can create your add-ins and post them there as long as you follow the guidance that they set forward here. It's like there's an approval process. It must not be offensive material, for example, and it should be free of viruses and so forth. So you should check that out if you plan on actually creating add-ins more professionally. So you should check this out. There's also this sideload Office add-ins that you can do from network share, which is what I did. And I'm going to show you kind of what you need to do for debugging, for give permission to use your add-in, because after all, you know, there's a security risk with it. So I'm going to go through that now and just show you how I did it. So to create your add-in for network access, here's my Visual Studio project. And notice it consists of two projects. One is the web project, which is the bottom one here. You see this one. And then the top one is the one that controls this Office add-in. And it has that very important file, which is the manifest file. So I went in here and I simply unloaded the project, so it's not part of the solution. And then I copied the whole project into a different folder. And so this is the same project. It's just a copy of the other one where the manifest portion has been removed, as you can see. So this is just the web portion. So what I did was I copied that project over into this folder called Office Add-ins. Sits right on my C drive. And here you can see, here is the actual project. So I took the manifest file that was in that other project that I showed you, that was in that separate project I unloaded or excluded, and I put that here. So right there is the manifest file itself. So now that I got that, all I have to do is to go into this folder, right click and say properties, go to sharing, and then you share the folder to whoever you want to be able to use this one. So I just, in this case, I said read permission to everyone here. So you need to share the folder like that. Now, once you share the folder, then you can go into Excel. And if you look now, there's nothing here. So in order to give permission for your add-in using that share drive, you need to go to File. You go down to Options. When this window opens, you go to this Trust Center. You open up the Trust Center but using this button. Then you select the Trusted Add-in Catalog. And if you notice here now, you can see that I have a reference to the shared folder that I created, the Office Add-ins folder right on the C drive. So if you look at the catalog type is Network Share, and this Show in Menu, if you check it, then it will show up on the menu on the top here. If you don't check it, it won't show up here. So if you want to keep seeing it in the ribbon, then you should check this. You should tick this one. Then you can say OK, and it says it will be applied next time you start Office. So that's OK. We'll say OK to that. And in order to activate your add-in now, what you have to do is you'll go into this Insert menu, go to Get Add-ins, and notice the shared folder shows up. So when I click the shared folder now, here you can see there's a pointer to my add-in. So I select it, I click Add, and if you look over here now, it shows up. And because I ticked it in the Trusted Catalog section, it will keep showing up in this ribbon. And if I don't want to see it, I can just go and remove it by unchecking it. So when I click here now, notice it pops up on the sidebar, and I can go in and do all the stuff that I did before, get the data, and there it is, and so forth, format it, whatever. So that's how you can get your add-in tested within your share drives. So when you actually change the code in your add-in, there's a couple of things that basically happens. Now, if you look at my add-in here, you can set breakpoints inside the Visual Studio 2022 code, as you can see here. And the thing about it is when you do, it will still synchronize with the Edge, Microsoft Edge developer tools. And when you debug, if you look at this task pane, there is a button on the top right corner. When you click on that, you can go to Attach Debugger. So the Microsoft Edge DevTools page will show up, and you'll have access to elements, the console, and of course the sources. So if you go to this home.js, you can see here's that code that runs in the JavaScript file. What I can do is I can put a breakpoint in this one. So let's put a breakpoint right here. All right. So what I can do is, obviously, when you run, you can see if there's any errors you show. Here's that usual suspect error, that fav icon that always shows up in web pages when you debug. So I put a breakpoint here. So when I go over to my add-in here and I say, let's say get data, it fires, and you can see it put the breakpoint in here. And then you can hover over it and you can look at, what it came up with. You can also grab these different variable or constants, go into the console and basically paste it there, and you can see, what it will look like, and you can drill into it, especially if you have arrays and all that kind of stuff, just like you normally do. So let's get the attached debugger again. Let's go in here. Let's scroll down to the code and let's remove this point. Now what's going to happen is remember I have a breakpoint over here on this URL. So let's run one more time. The add-in will say get data here. And notice over here now, it stopped it right there inside the code that calls the web API. So as you can see, you can still debug inside Visual Studio here. So I can just keep hitting F11, and as you can see, it steps through it. You can hover over it, and you can see what it's doing and so forth. So that's a way of debugging it. So if I go and get the debugger here, and let's put a breakpoint here, for example, where I load the JSON response, let's fire off the add-in, and now it's in the debugger. As you can see, it's paused in the debugger. So if we look at the debugger, you can see it's right there. So as you can see, you can debug it in the attached debugger. So that comes in very handy, and you can check out these things there. Okay, so when you build these projects, sometimes you make changes, and suddenly when you look in the debugger here, you don't see the same code base, as it doesn't include the change you made. So what can you do about it? Well, so if you added something and you don't see it, for example here, and say I added this and I saved it and did it, sometimes the add-in is cached. And because I'm opening a blank workbook here, and if you go in to say options and you go to Trust Center and you go to Trust Center settings, this trusted add-in catalog, according to what I read, check this one. Next time Office starts, clear all the previously stated web and add-ins in cache. So it's been cached. But one of the problems I have with this is because I don't save this. I don't save this workbook. So sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Instead, what I do is a little more tedious, but it works. So if this doesn't work for you here, what you can do is you can go to where the add-in basically puts all the files it's using, and that is in this, on my machine in the Windows 10, it's in this folder. So it's under users, whatever your name is, app data, local, Microsoft, Office, and in my case I have Windows 365, so I guess that's the version, and WEF. So if you look here, all these folders here are being created. So right now it might be cached. So what you want to do is you want to close Excel, make sure you close it, and stop the code from running, and you make your changes. Go to your project in Visual Studio if that's what you're using. Stop it from running. Then go to this location, because otherwise it won't be able to delete some of these files. Just highlight the whole thing here and delete it. So right now it's empty, and these take up a little space, so you might want to empty your recycle bin after you keep going back and forth on this stuff. So if I go back to my project again here, and I fire it up again, minimize it, and there's the web page. Now let's open up Excel again. So here's that folder. So I'm going to open up Excel, open a blank workbook. If you look now, it's created the files again. So now you have the latest version of your code base. So that's one way you can do it to get rid of the old cached files. Just delete it. And obviously you want to go to your recycle bin and get rid of it after a while, because it keeps creating these and they take up space. So anyways, that's a little bit about how you can debug and how you can actually get rid of cached add-in information, so you can keep updating your code base and get it to work that way. Okay, I hope this was useful for you, and I hope you got something out of it. If you liked it, give me a like, or maybe subscribe to my channel. Thanks.